I bought a lift, went in, signed a contract, gave them the money. I had ended up that I never even received a copy of my original contract, only partial of it, which had forgeries in it. I received contracts after that, all variations. None of them clearly state what we're doing. I ended up getting a lift. Other than what I bought, it was faulty, and these people will not in any way communicate or work with you. And I can assure you of that. I was relatively new to Florida. I didn't know anybody, and I bought my paradise here. And so I went to Wood Dock And Seawall to speak to them about a boat lift and a dock. I researched it on the web, but that's very questionable. And so when I went in on September 9th. There was no salesman available. I spoke to a lady named Debbie. And Debbie said she takes the proposals and passes them on to Brian. So we discussed a boat lift and a dock. I believe on the 13th of September, I went back to review what she had proposed, our proposal. At that time, I looked at it and I had noticed that the proposal would not work. Brian had just randomly threw in a drawing, and I belong to a homeowners association. So I wanted to speak with him. Well, you can't speak with Brian, but it happened to be he was walking through the office. So I stopped and I said, "Sir, I'd like to talk to you about this lift. I don't think it's going to work." Well, he didn't give me a chance to say why. He merely said, "I'm the expert. You're not. If you don't think it'll work, do it yourself." At that point, I should have ran. So I went back, and he did. He went in the office, and I went over and talked to Debbie, and I told her that they would not accept that drawing. So she said she would go over it with Brian and revise it. The next day, I received a notice that she had mailed me the commencement form and the revised proposal. But I never received a revised proposal. The only thing I received back from her was, in fact, an option sheet. This option sheet was on our initial meeting. It was signed by me, and this would have been on September 13th. At some point, this date was changed to 12/14. That happened somewhere in between. After the meeting I had with her where they were going to revise it, I did not realize they sent me 3 more proposals, all revised. I didn't really look at them. I failed to look at them as close as I should because it was merely my contract with a revised drawing. And so I thought that's not a big deal. I started getting letters from her stating that she wanted me to come in and sign a new contract, and I just thought this is not a big deal. I was very busy. My daughter was in Europe, and there was some things that I had to be with her for. So I was busy at the time, and I just kind of let it go, assuming we were proceeding. Let me just take a look through this. At the time, without the proposals, I had received a notice of commencement, as she said she mailed. She mailed me back another one stating that they had the homeowners' drawings. They were submitted. They would start, and the lift would go in late November. Here is the documents for these drawings we were talking about. They weren't actually submitted. None of this was submitted until January 8th of 2019. So all this time that I was assuming we were on our way, we weren't. In the meantime, during that period, I received 3 other revised contracts, all different, all stated different in format. The options were different, just like a different contract, and the prices vary. So that seems strange to me, but again, I wasn't very concerned. I thought, I just want a lift put in. I mean, I have a contract, you have a contract. I didn't feel there was a whole lot, and I had no idea they were changing these contracts. So I received these 3 contracts with revisions, never signed. I know they weren't signed. They said on a memo I have here that I believe was dated on the 13th that they received my contract. And again, they stated they were ready to go. After the job was done, I received this from them, which states that the deposit was received on 8/17. And that's, I don't even know what that date corresponds to, because again, I had received a notice that it was done on the 13th. All this was done on the 13th, or so I assume. It was a series of confusion. The dates didn't match. The revisions kept coming, all stated differently, in different formats. And yet I had an original signed contract that they wouldn't, I requested it, they didn't give it to me. They said, well, it doesn't matter, these are the revisions. So we went on forward. Finally, in January 8th, they submitted this, that they proposed they submitted in September. It was rejected because of the drawing I mentioned to him. My housing association would not accept it. He revised it and sent it back, and it was approved on January 19th. So at that point, all we had clear was there was 3 contracts. We finally got to the point where we had an acceptable proposal to begin the work. And so that merely represents my confusion, but I can certainly verify that in questioning the different proposals, actually the final one they sent me, and I may have mentioned this, was a page off of the original contract I had signed. They attached this to a different page contract and dated it 12/14/18. Now that's forged. I was not even in Florida on 12/14/18. So now when all this started, and I just thought it's a lift, I just want to be done with it. So I paid them what they had on their requested on the initial contract I signed. And let's move on from this. They put that lift in the beginning of March. By April 1st, that lift started to drastically fail. I called them time and time again. Never did get to speak to Brian. But Debbie then called me back, said, we're going to let the boat sink, and when it's all done sinking, we'll come out and cut the posts up. I said, Debbie, it's a brand new boat. If this thing fails, I cannot go to my insurance company because they won't validate it. So after quite a session, and I don't actually remember the date, Brian sent 2 men out. I told them I would not let them saw it. And they took and they pounded one pole down. We'll show you a picture of that. They did nothing with the other ones. So now I had 2 poles on like a 4-poster bed. The right side, the left side of the bed was leaning because they pounded the pole down. Only 1 pole. They didn't even adjust the other. And the other side is down up higher. Before they were even done, you could walk over and shake those poles. Those poles weren't sunk well. And so, of course, the gentleman worked and said, well, we did all we can do. And they left. It was approximately maybe, so that happened. April, they fixed it. I think in the next 2 months, and I have that date wrote down, but in the next 2 months, it started failing again. So I repeatedly called Debbie. Well, Joey or Brian will have to look at it. That's all she would say. So I sent them, I had to get another lift. I had 2 experts come out here. They deemed the lift unsafe. And they said that it's not a matter of if it's going to fail, it's when it's going to fail. So I got very concerned and I contacted another company, but I sent Wood Dock and Seawall a letter saying, to be fair, I'm going to inform you, I'm going to replace this. And so At that point, I got contacted that Brian was going to come out and see me, which on Friday. On Thursday, I received a call. Brian was going to go golfing, but Joey would come out on Monday. And Monday came, they sent a young man out, one of the installers, I assume, and he looked at the lift. And he said, well, there's nothing wrong with it. He said, you got the wrong planks on the bottom, which I knew. They didn't provide them. I have to show that here. She asked me about it, but they didn't provide them. So I said, I know that. I said, I'm trying to get this fixed. You guys, if you participate, give me the right planks. Let's get this thing fixed. I have a boat sitting on it. He said, well, we wouldn't do that. There would be $2,500, but I'd supply them. So I said, that's, that's, I guess it is what it is. He then looked at the lift and he maintained that. He said, it's sinking and the poles are twisted. But he says, all lifts sink and all lift poles twist. Now, I know that's not true. I mean, I live on a base and everybody here has a boat. And so I said, I can't agree. I don't agree with that. I said, will you participate in any way in helping me get it fixed? The lift itself was not failing. What was failing was simply the post sinking. So we needed to address that. And he wouldn't do it. So, I mean, there's nothing you can do other than pound those posts. He left. And as I said, I did inform them that after that, prior to that, that I was going to, but I felt it was fair to let them come out and see if they would work with me. I just wanted it done. He expressed that, no, that's not going to happen. He said, as far as they're concerned, the lift is usable. The next day, I believe it was, I received a letter from Debbie. Debbie's the go-to person. And they basically started picking apart the weight of the lift. Now, it's a 12,000-pound lift. It was supposed to be a 16,000, so I learned something there. But as far as the weight goes, fortunately, we're not overweight. They drew up what Debbie sent me a thing called simple math. The boat weighs this, the boat weighs that, the boat weighs this. And yes, all those numbers were accurate. And there's two things that can be questionable here. Is one, she put 1,500 pounds of fuel in the boat. Well, the boat's 2 years old. I have 32 hours on it. I've never filled those tanks. I mean, why let that gas sit there and get old? As far as, and as I said, I put 25 gallons. We go for a ride. There's never been water in the water tank. But even with those two, I'm within their limit. Then her statement back to me was, it's simple math. The boat weighs this, the motors weigh this. You're at 12,384 pounds. Well, I am if I put in the 2,000 pounds of water and fuel. And again, it's questionable, but I don't do it. Even 300 pounds is should it fail? It failed the first time. Well, then she stated it's failed because you have a cover on there with 10 cement blocks, which is not true. Just simply statements they make that were not true. I have pictures of that as well. And I did put a cover on it. So I talked to the cover guy. He says, you're about 300-400 pounds on that cover. So at the very most, the lift is 300 or so pounds overweight, but it has never been. The first time the lift failed, 1 month after they put it in, excuse me, there was no cover on it. It just put the boat on. A month later, it's sinking. So, that was their attitude. There was no sense in arguing with them. They were not going to go with any responsibility of anyway with this lift. I had the man who put the cover on. He works on boat lifts every day, and another expert who installs boat lifts, very reputable company, who both looked at it and said it's just a very, very poor job. The poles are crooked, they're loose. And again, they deemed it unsafe and said that it could not stand as it is. The one company even offered to try and repair it. They'd have to pull the poles out and redo it, basically, which at that price, I said, I'm dang near replacing it. But again, there's nothing wrong with it. That's feasible. I was hoping to work out a solution like that with Wood Dock and Seawall. I questioned it further, and I don't want to speak for them, but it was my impression that they stated, Wood Dock has got a ton of these problems out there. They weren't surprised. So it kind of stopped. The communication stopped there, and I'm working with another company to replace the lift. There's some, again, reverting a little bit back while they were here, I canceled the fish table. I had ordered some bumpers on options. And of course, the stringers I needed were never provided. So, and I made attempts to deal with that previous to this even, and could not get a response. What they put in, they leave in, and you don't get to speak with them after that. I guess, at one time I sent Debbie an email. I said, Debbie, I've been trying to reach somebody for months. This thing failed again. It failed first time April, and it failed again in early May. And so couldn't even get a hold of them until a recent visit when did he come out? Probably approximately a month ago. So I waited from then until now, maybe 5 or 6 months for them even to respond. So I kind of let it go. I just felt we're not going to go anywhere, hearing what I heard. And not that I'm validating it's true, but you just get the feeling that this isn't going to work. So I let it go. I am attempting to put a new one in. The fact that it's, again, I guess the fact comes out that it's not the 16,000-pound lift I ordered that I have correspondence for. They put a 12,000-pound lift in. It was still suitable for me, and I'm not worth a big deal. But it's not the lift did not fail. The lift is good. They merely did not sink the pole straight and well, and that's causing the thing to sag. I cannot leave the boat on it. We'll show you some pictures. Yeah, my experience is similar to what you don't see many negative reviews. They post they've never had one. Well, I found some on the Better Business Bureau, and I have a copy of it, which we will show you. Being a little nervous, I think I covered it all. I hope I did. Because again, it's frustrating. I was new here. I didn't know people to talk to. I'm buying a $20,000 boat lift. So you read the reviews on his site and you think they're raving stars. I don't know how they get them, because I know you're going to read a true one. But I think that in this day and age, and particularly there seems to be a little bit of a weak culture as far as merchants. We've become big. And so I think it's important that people have a chance to get an honest, you don't have a lot of options to buy. It would be nice to have some access. I strongly endorse what you people are doing. I mean, what other, as consumers, again, online, everything else has made it very tricky, especially for old dogs like me. And so I think what you do is invaluable. I share this. I want to share this, and I wish that I could really, I will in the future, try and extensively search for reviews. When I grew up, was kind of the guy down the street, put your refrigerator in, you knew him, and it's not that way anymore.